Hi everyone, welcome to week 3 of digital writing. The question this week is, do podcasts count as digital writing? You might think, since this class is called digital writing and you're doing a podcast for this class, the simple answer would be, yeah, totally. But as with a lot of things that we talk about in this class, the answer is not really that simple. The trouble with calling a podcast writing is that it's a genre that's ultimately oral. Scholars of writing have been talking about the differences between writing and speech at least since our buddy Plato. Remember in week 1 we talked about how Plato reports Socrates thought that the invention of writing was basically going to ruin human memory forever? That was one of the first scholarly discussions of the differences between writing and speech, but at that time, writing looked quite different from what it looks like today. Paragraphs had literally not been invented yet, and the ordering of text was very different. In early Greek writing, the letters went from left to right and then from right to left. And when it's going from right to left, the letters are mirrored. This type of writing is called boustrophodon, and I'm sure I horribly mispronounced that because I don't speak ancient Greek. And this word actually references the turn that an ox makes when plowing a field. So that's what this is supposed to look like, is an ox plowing a field. Anyway, people have claimed a lot of things about the differences between speech and writing, but scholars are still trying to figure out what the actual differences are, especially in the digital age when so many types of communication seem to be hybrid. In fact, the study of instant messaging that we talked about in week 1 discusses the supposed hybrid nature of IM. Those who call instant messaging a hybrid form of communication are nodding to the fact that instant messaging acts a lot like verbal conversation. But as we discussed in week 1, paralinguistic features, features of language that don't have anything to do with words, smiling, gesture, nodding, things like that, those features work quite differently in instant messaging than they do in speech. And in fact, the authors of that study ultimately argue that IM is not a hybrid form of communication, but firmly a form of writing. So what about podcasts? Again, podcasts are a medium of sound, of speech. You may have written a script and written interview questions for your podcast, but you ultimately had to read those scripts and those questions aloud to record them. So there may be both spoken and written components, and in professional podcasts, that's often the case. So for example, Tracy V. Wilson and Holly Fry, the creators of the Stuff You Missed in History Class podcast, which is a personal favorite of mine, FYI, often talk about creating and working from episode notes. And their podcast often sounds like they spent some time reading from those notes and some time ad-libbing as new ideas pop into their heads as they read from the notes. Also, FYI, that's basically what I do when I create these videos. I have a little script that I mostly follow as I read, and I read it as I go along, and then sometimes I do what I'm doing now and add a little bit of extra information as it occurs to me. So, given this, sort of both scripted and ad hoc nature of podcasts and of these videos, maybe they're more of a hybrid medium than instant messaging is, or at least as the authors of the IM study say that it is. However, so I'm going to actually cheat a little bit with this question, are podcasts a form of writing, and say that we don't really have to come up with an answer here, because writing scholars use terms that mean we don't have to come up with a firm yes or no answer. So, for example, writing scholars often use the word composing instead of writing when it comes to media that blends writing with other forms of meaning making like speech or images or video. We often still call these media texts, even if that text is an image or a video and has very little or no written word. So are podcasts digital writing? Long story short, too late. The answer is that it doesn't really matter. At the very least, it's digital composing, and we're definitely doing it in this class. And I hope it's something that you've been having fun with. I can't wait to hear what you've been composing.